Hey, welcome back to the Gilbertson Aero Factory. Today is Saturday, the 29th of March, 2025. This video is brought to you by Gilbertson Bookkeeping. You thought I was going to say AG1. Let's see here. Continuing work on the fly LEDs. I misspoke in my last video and I said that the instructions are broken into 4 parts and I was finished with part 3. Incorrect. I finished parts 1 and 2. So I've mounted the LEDs on the quote-unquote boards that will be putting light out into the universe. I've built a controller board for the whole shebang. I talked to Tim. He said that his was a different setup and the controller board already came assembled and that it was set up for a Dynon system. So I'm getting into part 3, which is the spots, like the landing and taxi light thing. And the reason I'm out here in the factory to do this is because there are some nut plates that I have to mount before I do anything else. So I'm going to get into that. I might get into a little more work today outside of these things. We'll see how long this part's going to take me. I really don't know. So anyways, thanks for being here. Let's build an airplane. Oh, by the way, in the last video I said, oh yeah, this is why it's been so long since I've done my last video, or this is what's been going on. I completely failed to mention that I spent several days in the hospital last week with emergency gallbladder surgery. You'd think you'd lead with that. And I was reminded, it's also weird that I would have to be reminded of this, but yesterday I saw that Steve, Flight Chops, posted a few pictures on Instagram that he had emergency gallbladder surgery like almost maybe the same day that I did. So anyways, feeling a little lighter today. Yeah, now let's build an airplane. Okay, into it we go. I have to remember to not put the camera here where I get the really bright outside because I have to really wash it out to actually see what's going on inside. But anyways, this is very straightforward business here. We're just putting mounting plates on there because these mounting plates, nut plates on these, what they call light boards that will hold the big LEDs for the landing and taxi lights. Because they are mounted with screws with backing springs on them so that so you can adjust the aim and whatnot. I'll tell you what, the instructions really are good for this. So the only kind of gotcha here is just if you do something stupid all by yourself, which is how I make mistakes. Other than that, yeah, put on some nut plates. There are 2 different types of nut plates. There are the traditional nut plates with a rivet on either side of the screw hole, and then there are so-called single lug nut plates where the screw hole is on one end of the nut plate, and then you have, in this case, it's single lug, but it actually has 2 rivet holes on that leg there. And the instructions are very clear to explain that one rivet is totally fine. You could set both rivets, but not without modifying your tools, because that middle, the rivet hole that sits between, like in the middle of the thing, sits so close to the screw hole where it sort of crowns up that you would have to seriously modify tools to get enough clearance to do it. So anyways, simple work still, nonetheless, because it's me and I know you guys count on me to do this, I did end up mounting a nut plate on the wrong friggin' side of one of these boards. So, and there are really 2 reasons I did it. 1, stupidity, and 2, because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have yet another opportunity to use the super cool universal rivet removal tool given to me by Jack Cole Freeman. By the way, I don't know if Jack Cole Freeman, if that's like what his buddies call him when they're playing basketball or whatever. It's just a cool name, so I prefer Jack Cole Freeman. Cool name. And thanks again for the tool. I'm making sure that it gets used often. Let's see. Okay, I mentioned about the gallbladder surgery. This is now my second abdominal surgery in which an organ was removed about 6 years ago. My spleen was trying to kill me. Got that taken care of. And then I guess now almost 2 weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, my gallbladder was, I guess, in danger of rupturing, which would also try to kill me, which is not awesome. The pain was fantastical, and it was for a very long time, and it was steady state. It's a different kind of pain than I've experienced before. I've experienced, like most of us, like extreme levels of pain, but not just steady without a break for 12 or 13 hours. Anyways, let me say this. Abdominal surgery, laparoscopic surgery, I mean, there are more fun ways to spend your time, but if you have an organ that's trying to kill you, 1010 would recommend. Such a huge relief when it's done. It's now been almost 2 weeks since my surgery. I'm back 100% able to do all the stuff that I was doing before. So anyways, that was good. And the other thing, there's still one more thing that fell into that category of the reasons why I wasn't posting a video doing other things. I flew to Anaheim to go watch my youngest daughter, who's a senior in high school, perform in her final USA Nationals dance competition. And as expected, she crushed it. 4 national titles, her and her team, but one of them was significant. It was a particular division that their school, which is very good at this, has never, ever won this one. So it was herself and 3 others. They killed it, and now on to college, where she'll be performing in front of big crowds at games for the Washington State Cougars. And every time I say Washington State Cougars, my dad turns over in his urn. Go Huskies. Okay, so I think here we're getting to the end of the nut plates. It says on the camera that was 49 minutes, but I mean, obviously I'm always looking for stuff, whatever. So now we get into the assembly of the lights. There's no soldering or anything that goes on, at least in this part. You have these are big heat sinks that will go behind these LEDs. So you see me buttering them up with thermal paste. And in this instance, it does actually work much better just to put a little on one and rub the two together rather than using that little palette knife. In this instance, this is the far superior way to get it done. So what we have is the heat sinks, then the light boards, and then these cups. You see the cup in my hand right there. The cups will fit over the top of the LED, and those cups will hold the lenses, these big googly-eyed lenses. So a little bit of figuring out an order of operations that works for you. The plans describe a sequence in which to assemble these. Everything's sort of keyed and will fit one particular way, so just pay attention to it when you're doing it. So I found for me that putting the screws in those lens holders first before fitting it to the board, it was easier to get them inserted simply because once you have the holes, if you have the heat sink there and you place the board on top of it and you have the holes lined up and then you put the cup on top of it and try to put the screws in there, those screws are a little bit of a snug fit in that plastic cup. And so when you try to insert them, you misalign the holes. So instead, just go ahead and put the screws through first and you can eyeball them into place. Not a big deal. This was a really simple process. The hardest thing about all of this was locating the one last tiny little screw that puts these together. My one complaint, probably my only complaint about the Flyleds, is that this hardware bag had nut plates, rivets, springs, all the different size screws, all that in just one bag loose. And everything gets caught in those springs. So that's a very small complaint, but maybe it cost me 10 minutes total time. Anyways, this is going to be a shorter video because the work was pretty simple. This will complete part 3. I read part 4 and it's not time for part 4 yet. Part 4 is really just getting into the wiring, ultimately running the wiring through the wings. I have thoughts on that. We'll talk about that later. And then ultimately wiring it up to the control board, or in the case of the strobes,
to the Garmin or the vertical power or something else that will control it in the wigwag function. So I'll come up here with sort of a closing shot of what these units look like assembled. There you go. Thanks for being here. Have a good one.